So, so after yesterday's crying video, I was, gosh, I was going back and forth after I had uploaded that, like, should I have done that? And, you know, it's the truth. It's what's going on with me, and again, it's okay. And there's still that voice in the back of my head of like, God, what are people gonna think? And, you know, and for me, all of the crying that I have been doing and like in mourning the loss of the relationship, it's been welcome. Like, it's been something, I wouldn't say new, but getting in touch with my feelings and really what's true for me is a welcome thing these days for me. So crying is actually beautiful as far as I'm concerned, because I want to nurture that in me more and more, because I had been, like, I had taught myself for most of my life to just totally squelch my emotions, you know? Like, nope, they're not right, they're not okay. Don't cry, especially as a guy. You're crying as a man, like, that's totally not manly, and all of that bullshit. So crying for me is cathartic. It's moving something. It's accepting where I am, and it's honoring. Specifically, crying yesterday was like honoring the relationship that I had that is now over, and it's like, grieving is actually a way of loving. I'm starting to realize in myself. It's like, to really cry, whether it's the loss of a relationship or the loss of a loved one, crying is a way of saying, I'm gonna miss you. So, that just touched me. So, it reminds me of the quote by Benjamin Disraeli, something like that. Is never apologize for showing feeling, because then you apologize for truth. And now what's coming to my mind is the tendency to project. Like, the second that I put up the crying video, and this is definitely not to shame anyone who's giving me this kind of feedback and support and love in the slightest, but I do notice a tendency in whatever feedback people give me, or whatever kind of support people give me around the relationship ending, is filled with projections of, well, what does it mean for them to break up? What has it meant to them in the past? Like, what have breakups meant to them, and how have they felt for them? And I get that the care is there, and I get that the love and support is there, and the kind of feedback that's given to me is stuff like, you know, well, she didn't deserve you anyway, or oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You must be so distraught right now. You must be so sad. I'm so sorry. That must be horrible for you. And there's something about that kind of feedback that doesn't feel good, because in a way there hasn't been that question of, well, how is that for you? Like, how is the breakup for you? And it's reminding myself of all the times that I project onto other people my own experience, and like, oh yeah, you're having a rough day at work. Well, that must mean that you hate your boss. Or, you had an argument with your boss. Well, that must mean that your boss is a bad person. Because I've had a bad boss in the past, and yeah, fuck bosses. They suck. Without even really getting to know, like, what that other person is actually going through, and really having the bandwidth to listen and really understand, and then support from that place. And again, this is not to shame the people who are giving me support in the wrong way or something like that. It's just something that I'm noticing in myself, and a tendency that I'm noticing in myself. So any sort of support is totally, oh, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It feels really good. And there is a part of myself that's shaming myself of like, wow, you're being picky and, pointing this out. But again, this is reminding me of all the times that I can do that to others and project my own experience onto others without really getting to know their experience first and supporting them from that place. And to tie this all into herpes, because after all, this is a herpes support site, and this is a shamelessness site, is that projection happens all over the place. Like, projection can actually be a good thing. It's a way that we can kind of be efficient with the way that we think, and like, oh, that's happened to me before. It's probably similar to what I've gone through, but where it can get dicey is if we just assume that it's a real big assumption that my experience of this thing is the same as your experience of this thing. So I see it all the time with herpes. Maybe it does show up with people who don't have herpes to people who do have herpes, like projecting all the stigma onto them, or maybe like projecting, like, wow, you must be a slut, or you must have slept around, or you must be dirty. You probably don't have any sort of morals whatsoever. Like, whatever it is, that's just totally not true. Or maybe some of those are true, but maybe the person's not even seeing if they are. They're just assuming. But for the most part, they're not true. Let me put that out there. So it may happen that way with people who don't have herpes to people who do, but the vast majority of times that I see it is people who do have herpes, who, specifically those people who just got herpes, and they don't even give themselves a chance to really, like, experience what it is like to have herpes. Like, what is it like for you specifically to have herpes? It's a very different experience than what it's like for me to have herpes. So don't project onto herpes what it's going to be. Like, don't let the stigma and whatever shame is out there, whether it's like popular in our culture or whether it's popular in your head, like, really allow yourself to have your own experience, and no one else can really dictate what that is for us, but we do it all the time. Especially something that has stigma attached to it, or has like a popular opinion attached to it. Like, it's similar to when I was in high school and I overheard people talking about this other person that I didn't really know too well. I was brand new, coming from private school in 8th grade to public school in 9th grade, and I was looking around, well, who's cool and who's not cool? And my way of figuring that out was looking at the people that I assumed were cool and then listening to them about who else wasn't cool and who was cool. Like, I didn't know. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my own opinion and my own way of figuring it out. I didn't trust my intuition. So what did I do? I turned to others who I thought had the answers and went with that. And I still see that tendency in myself. And noticing, just noticing, like, allowing myself to have my own opinion, regardless of what other people think. And that goes for herpes too. It's like, who's to say what herpes is going to be for you? Most of all of the horrors and all of the fear and all of the disconnection and I'm not going to be loved and what if this happens and what if that happens, most of that, 99% of that, is just in our head, and it never actually ends up happening. What is it, that quote? I forget who said it, but what is it? Oh no. There are a lot of horrible things in my life, most of which never actually happened. Something like that. It's like, how much of the horror of our lives, or how much of the horror of herpes and what other people are going to think, and how many times we're going to be totally rejected and people looking at us disgusted and all of that, how much of that actually really happens in real life, and how much of it happens in our imagination? I really want more fairness around this for all of us. Like, totally having fairness around what is real and what is imaginary.